If you have your Bibles this morning, Galatians 5, chapter 1, we're going to be watching a little video, and I'm preaching on spiritual blindness today, but I was really intrigued by this video. It's like a little podcast, a gentleman and a lady talking together. Both of them are blind. One was blind at birth. The other one was blind, progressively lost her sight over time. And so I want to play that today and anticipate everybody's going to see something a little different. But I want you to kind of keep in the back of your mind that I'm using this to kind of illustrate the issue of sight.
Today I'm joined by Christine Ha. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, Tommy.
Thanks for being here. Now tell everybody a little bit about yourself and also how you lost your sight.
Sure. My name is Christine Ha. If you've recognized my name, I won MasterChef Season 3 quite a few years ago, but I am the first contestant and winner who is blind on MasterChef. And I lost my vision from an autoimmune condition called neuromyelitis optica, or NMO, which means my optic nerves atrophied over time.
At what age was that?
I lost my vision in my 20s, so I would say starting about 17 years ago or so, but it was very gradual, so it was over time, like maybe 7 years.
So today we're going to explore the differences of someone who's blind since birth like myself, or somebody who's lost their sight later on in life like Christine has. So Ben is going to ask us questions about everyday scenarios, and we're just going to talk about our experiences. Now after you watch this video, don't forget to go over to Christine's channel and see the collab that we did over there. You all set?
Mm-hmm. Feels like a game show.
Well, that's after the bonus round.
Can you describe what you're able to see?
I see what the doctors call counting fingers in both eyes at about 10 to 12 inches. That's medically speaking. For layman's terms, I say I see some light, some shadows, very foggy. I describe it mostly as though if you were to come out of a very hot shower and you looked into that really steamy mirror because it's all fogged up. That's kind of what I see. That's my world. So I see just some shape and fog.
Well, me, I really don't see anything. I have a little bit of light perception, although I have cataracts now, so it's gotten fairly dark. I don't see any shadows. I don't see any color. There's nothing.
When you dream, do you see images like someone who is sighted, or are you blind?
That's a really good question. I still dream in full vision, and I find myself often very sad when I wake up and it's not true. So I still see color, I still see things that I remember from, having been able to see before. So I still imagine myself as my 20-something-year-old self. So it would also be quite sad if I ever got my vision back and saw in the mirror how much I've aged.
Is there ever a time where you do remember that you...
All the dreams that I remember that I've dreamt have been in full vision. I'm walking around independently, completely in my dreams, doing things as I used to do when I had full vision.
When I dream, I don't see anything because my subconscious doesn't know how to see. Therefore, I can't see in my dreams, right? See, Christine remembers what it's like to see in her brain, but for me, I don't. So I dream in my other four senses. I can smell, taste, touch, and hear in my dreams, but I don't see anything.
But your dreams are still very vivid with those other senses, I presume.
Very much so, yeah.
If any, what do you consider some perks of being blind?
Tommy, you go first.
Really? You want me to? All right, I'll tell you. For me, some of the perks of being blind include things like riding the train. There's a train line back in Connecticut where I'm from, and it goes between Connecticut and New York City. And I never buy a ticket because I get on the train and then I'll have a seat, and probably 8 times out of 10, they won't ask me for a ticket. It's incredible. So that's a good one. I get on planes first, which is always great.
Right.
But the problem is I get off last.
Yeah, when you're flying by yourself.
Yeah. So another thing that I really like is I don't really watch people age too much, which I like that too.
Definitely pre-boarding, passing up the line at TSA security check-in. I feel like my friends who travel with me or my husband who travels with me finds it more of a perk than I do, but they're like, whip out that cane so we can skip the line. So I think it's definitely an advantage. I find that I'm much less judgmental than I used to be. I think I like that because I don't like being judgmental, but everyone has a little bit of judgmentalism in them, I think, that can't be helped just based on how you grow up or what you're exposed to. But now I cannot base anything on people's appearances. I really cannot judge a book by its cover, and I'm glad about that.
What's something that you wish you could do, but you can't because of your blindness?
Driving.
A little more? You want to talk about that or no?
Oh, I think it's because I always loved to drive ever since I started driving when I had vision. It makes me feel very independent. I grew up an only child. I lost my mom when I was young, so being independent was very much a part of me. I loved running errands by myself. I loved just doing a lot of things by myself, using my car as a vehicle. So when I lost my vision, I think that's what I miss most. I used to drive a manual, so I found it fun. Driving was kind of, I wouldn't say a hobby, but it was definitely something I like to pass the time with. It was kind of my alone time. Second most thing I miss is watching foreign films with subtitles.
For me, I would like to catch a ball. I'd like to be able to catch a ball and not have somebody go, all right, Tommy, here it comes out, hands out, get ready. I'd like to just be able to reach up and catch one. You know what I mean? That'd be so cool. I'd like to be able to use the computer without speech. You know what I mean? I'd like to be able to look at the whole screen and see a bunch of stuff all at once and just pop, pop, pop. I mean, sighted people whip through the computer so fast, it blows my mind.
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to do that.
Do you keep your eyes closed or open, and why?
For me, I keep my eyes open because I still retain some vision, so I'm trying to use as much sensory intake as I can.
I keep my eyes shut most of the time. I really do. To keep my eyes open, it's using muscles that I'm really not used to using. So it's very fatiguing. I get very tired. I have to keep my eyes open for a couple of minutes even. You know, it's a lot of work to keep them open for me. So I'm much more relaxed with my eyes shut.
You need little weights for your eyelids.
Would you rather have lost your sight or be born blind?
That's also a tough question. I think that I only know my paradigm, so I think I would say I am glad that I had vision and then lost it, although I can see someone's point of view maybe from the other way, but I feel like I can remember what my husband John looked like when we met. I can remember colors. So for me, I am glad that I lost my vision later in life.
I think if I had vision and lost it, I don't think I'd be as much fun as I am today. I think I would be a real crank. I think I'd be very angry and upset. I feel so much better knowing what I'm not missing, right? If I knew what I was missing, I think I'd be very upset about it. This way I don't know, and I can completely do things my own way, and it's all good. To know what I was missing, I think would really drive me crazy.
If you could have surgery that would help you see, would you do it?
Yes, for the sake of my husband, so he doesn't have to drive me around anymore.
Yes, I would have to try it. Although I think, I've said before, I think if I were able to get sight, I think I would have tremendous headaches the first few weeks of it because of all this brand new information to process that I've never experienced in my life before. So, I'd love to try it. And as I always say, I guess if I didn't like it, I could just keep my eyes closed and it'd be, back the way I like. So, but I'd have to try it.
Do you have a question for each other?
I'm curious to know, because you're known as the blind film critic, what are some of your favorite movies?
Goodfellas, I love that movie. It's, it might not be your thing.
I like Goodfellas.
Oh, good. All right, good for you. I love Clerks.
Clerks,
the Kevin Smith thing. It's all dialogue driven.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. The one that will surprise you is a film called Hugo from a few years ago.
Okay.
It's a Martin Scorsese thing. It's a 3D one.
Yes.
And I hear 3D and I panic instantly. I'm like, oh, this can't be good. And that movie was wonderful, just from start to finish. It was so compelling and captivating, and I just fell in love with all the characters and all the situations. And Manchester by the Sea I loved. Moonlight is wonderful.
I really enjoy that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna ask you this question: how do you pick out clothing as a woman? Because I know, it's important to look nice and everything. So how do you do it?
Good question. I rely heavily on my girlfriends and my cousin. So the female friends in my life that know fashion and know my taste as well, because also what I buy ends up kind of being a result of my friend's taste. But they know my taste and it kind of mixes with what they like. But I'll tell them this is what I'm looking for, and then we'll go shopping together, either online or in store, and then they'll describe me things, then I'll try it on. So that's how I go shopping. I wish I could do online shopping more, but I've found that descriptions on a lot of websites are not very descriptive when you're using your screen reader. So, for example, some makeup brands will call their colors things like LSD. or like things that I'm like, well, what does this mean? Like, is it very colorful, or, what is this color? I've spoken about it before, the importance of designing your website well and adding descriptions, not trying to be all like smart with your descriptions, but sometimes we just need straightforward descriptions of things.
To share that with you this morning, we're on spiritual blindness, is Paul, as we've been exploring in our series, Fruit of the Spirit. We're looking at faithfulness, and Paul is addressing, like this woman, she was able to see the earlier part of her years, but then there was an onset of blindness. It's very common, churches are going to be full of people today, and it's very common for people to think that they can see. And I'm not here to take away your sight today. I'm here to get you to question, is it possible that you don't see as much as you think that you do? And wanted to show this video because these are real people living with a real situation. One is born blind. The other person had a condition that progressively caused her sight to begin to erode. Paul is dealing with the church of Galatia, and what is happening is he's trying to address a type of spiritual blindness. I don't think Jesus ever intended us just to become churchgoers. I believe that he intended us to have an awakening. When they asked him if you could see, what do you think, would you take that? And he said, I think I would have headaches because all of a sudden, everything that I never realized that was there, I would suddenly, this overload of your senses would transpire. If you've ever truly begin to spiritually explore and you begin to see what God wants you to see, I want to tell you it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. Not because you see it all, but just the part that you got to see can be so revelatory and begin to have such an effect upon you. And hopefully that becomes the catalyst to continue to explore. But sadly, many people, as we explored last Sunday, feel like what they see is enough, when in reality, God is so much more than that. Are you with me today? We're looking at, where do spirits come from? What do spirits produce, and why identify a spirit? As I said, we're looking at the spirit of faith today, and the spirit is defined as power, a breath or wind. It's seen as unseen living elements. I want to look at spiritual bondage today and the disadvantage of blindness in Galatians chapter 5, verse 1. Galatians chapter 5, verse 1. It says, "Stand fast therein in the liberty wherewith Christ has made us free, and be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage." Paul is speaking to the Galatians, and what is happening is they're being drugged back by personal tendencies of human nature and this religious zealots that are trying to drag them back to this old religious mindset. The problem with the old religious mindset is that it's totally counterintuitive to the grace of God. Totally counterintuitive. Old Testament looks at your performance. The New Testament looks at your identity. Which one would you rather be looked upon at as how God sees you, or the performance that others have seen? What one would you rather? How God sees you. Okay, that's why the blindness needs a cure. That's why we need to wake up. I keep harping in spiritually on the same things, because the reality, there is a famine of people that understand. There's not a famine of Bibles and preachers and churches. There's not a famine of people that have memorized scriptures. There's not a famine of Bible studies going on. There's a famine of people that truly have awakened. He said, I came to see the blind eyes healed. And he's not talking about these two balls in your head. He's talking about your mind's eye, your ability to see what the common person usually cannot see. Is it possible that spiritual blindness exists today? I think we all know the answer, but you need to hear a human being ask you, is it possible that spiritual blindness exists today? And is it possible that there's a type of captivity and bondage that comes with that? You may consciously or subconsciously think it doesn't really matter if I really don't see that today. But what if it's that we're paying the price in our lives? You think about your relationships, you think about your money, you think about your confidence or lack of confidence with God. What if the truth is it's not free to not be able to see? You know, this guy says, I'd love to just reach my hand up and catch a ball. She said, I would like to just go driving. Driving used to be like a therapy for me. We may be used to those things, but the reality is, I think there's something that every one of you in this place would like to do, but you cannot yet see it. How that's possible, how that can transpire. The Galatians are paying the price because now what is happening is in that church, in that fellowship of people, there's fighting amongst themselves. And Paul is warning them about, be careful that you do not devour one another. And he's trying to let them know that this perspective that you have about God and yourself is directly starting to reflect upon your relationships. Upon your relationships. Some of the most irritable, contentious people go to church. I didn't have to do it this election, but last election I had to totally get off social media because there were so many mean church people. You would think we would easily begin to see that this is kind of contrary to the Spirit of God, but the thing is that you get so wrapped up in it, we just continue to go on. In Galatians 5:17-22, let's look at the spiritual fruit of faith again today. Galatians chapter 5:17-22. For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh, and these are contrary one to the other, so that you cannot do the things that you would. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, sedition, heresies, envy, murder, drunkenness, reveling, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in times past, they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, and faith. We've been steadily going through this list, and we're on faith again today. The Bible says that you will know what a person truly believes, not by what they say, but by their fruit, by the fruit of their life. I believe that you can totally not have the Spirit of God and have a good day. But it's referring to a person's, the culture of their life, their practice. You cannot fake the Spirit of God. You cannot fake the fruit of the Spirit. A person that has a steady testimony of joy, of peace. Now, I'm not getting overly romantic about it because people that have peace have bad days. People that have joy have some days where there's some sadness. We're talking about the overall testimony of your life spiritually. He says you'll know them by their fruit. People that have a gentleness, a kindness. People that have a sense of faith. He says, you will know them by their fruit. We look at a tree one day and it's a lemon tree. The next day, it's usually not an apple tree. It's still a lemon tree. So the fruit of your life, God is not grading you upon any one particular day. We are going to be dealt with based on our practice. The word faith, it denotes an assurance. It denotes belief, fidelity. In the Marine Corps, they have a motto, Semper Fidelis. Semper Fi, you'll hear him say, but the word fidelity means faithfulness, and faith means trustworthiness. Paul is contending with these as their pastor. He's contending with them, and he's letting them know there's a battle going on. And this battle is a battle that you need to be able to discern between the law and the grace of God. What are some of the byproducts of the law? If you decide I'm going to live according to these rules, these laws, thou shalt not. Why is that different from grace? Can somebody tell me here? Julius.
Law will sacrifice people where grace will restart the relationship.
Okay? Anybody else?
With the law, you have to make sure your performance is always, because it's like do and not do, there's a lot of like doing and action and works
Okay.
to be aligned by the law.
So is doing important?
Yes.
Is it primary? Okay. So Sandra says that the law is based on your performance. But she's also saying that doing is important. What is, if doing is not the main priority, what is the main priority if it's not doing? Doing is important. She's not throwing that away. What is the main priority? Mario.
Staying connected to the relationship?
Okay. Anybody else?
Understanding.
Understanding. So we're talking about blindness and talking about seeing. You can mean well and want to do all that needs to be done, but if you can't see, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. Paul is contending and he is saying, look, we've got to face this. Last Sunday, we looked where Jesus was preaching and he was saying, those that are blind can be healed, but those that think that they can see, sin remains. See, there is a sin called the sin of omission, and it's basically the denial of the fact that you know that you can't see, but you've built a practice pretending that you can. That's what he's saying. He said the people that are truly blind are people that are telling you, no, I'm truly blind. And that may sound easy, but if you get around to lots of people, most people don't want to feel like they don't know what you're talking about. Most people don't want to feel like they're out of the conversation. They don't want to feel like they're coming to the table and they don't have something to offer. So oftentimes people fake it till they make it. Are you with me? And people, oh yeah, you know, and everybody just we're all kind of pretending. Or let's say you got a little bit of information. They say some of the most dangerous people in the world are people with a little bit of information because they're hoping that little bit of information makes them sound like they really know. Can I tell you this? People with a little bit of information know they have a little bit of information. They know it. But you get a bunch of people together with a little bit of information, they've all talked themselves into, we got a whole lot of information. The Old Testament is information. The New Testament is revelation. It's revelation. The Old Testament, we waited for one guy who's not blind to see. The New Testament is God wants to heal every priest and priestess in this room so that you can see. Every priest and priestess. Can I ask you something? Does fear and shame and guilt and condemnation require sight? Does it require a Bible study? Does it require going to church? You'll find out that fear, guilt, and shame and all these things require no sight whatsoever. They require no sight whatsoever. The lady was saying, she goes, you know, one thing I'm really glad about is that I can't judge anybody anymore because I can't see them. And she goes, we don't want to judge, but there's a side of us that kind of has that propensity. And she goes, now I really can't even judge a book by its cover because I can't see the cover. Can't see the cover. Fear, shame, guilt, condemnation require no revelation whatsoever. You can be blind and feel totally guilty. You can be blind and feel total shame and condemnation come upon you. Requires no revelation of sight whatsoever, but this is the very reason Jesus came. He came to give sight to the blind, that they would begin to see more than the physicality of life, but see the things that the common person can't see. I asked last Sunday, Jesus said to Thomas, blessed are those who don't see and believe. So I asked the question, is God asking our faith to be blind? But blind faith is very common. Blind faith is very common. People fill it in with romanticism. I let Jesus take the wheel. Next thing you know, your car's wrapped around a telephone pole out there somewhere. I just let go and let God. I just give it all to God and he just gives it all back. You know what I mean? It's like, we got all these nice little romanticized, clever quotations and this and that really have no bearing on the reality of what God is trying to get us to see and try to get us to understand. In John chapter 9, 1-4, if you have your Bible, turn there for me. We touched a little bit on this guy, and he was a blind man. He is very well known, and he begs for an existence. His mother and father are alive, and this guy is well known because he is blind. And I want to read about him a little bit. John chapter 9, the Gospel of John, 1-4. And the Bible says Jesus passed by, and he saw a man which was blind from his birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus answered and said, Neither hath this man sinned nor his parents, but the works of God should be made manifest in him. Verse 4, I must work the works of him that sent me while it is yet day. The night cometh when no man can work, or the night cometh when no man can work. So the disciples look and see this man. They know that he's been blind since birth. And the question they begin to associate with his blindness is sin. That do we blame his parents or do we blame this guy? The disciples themselves are constantly finding themselves at times with Jesus, trying to him. There was one guy Jesus prayed for, and he had to do a number of times. His relationship to his disciples was healing their blindness. Peter, James, John, they all had blind spots. So they're coming to this thing, and they're looking at this blindness, and the first thing they think of is, who do we blame? If you're blind from birth, now, Jesus said, neither has this man sinned nor his parents. Now, the religious mind right away is confused about that because the Bible says all of us have sinned. But he's addressing the context of their presumption/accusation. He says this blindness is not about guilt. He said this blindness that has been revealed here today is about opportunity. It's about this blindness is about what God is wanting to glorify. This is not about guilt. Paul is warning the church of Galatians. He says, look, this old religious mindset you have is going to be have great continuity and connection with guilt and shame and fear and judgment. Are you with me today? He is saying that is not what God's approach to your life is supposed to be about. God has no desire to have this big, mean God thing going on and chasing you around with your guilt and your shame and all this kind of stuff. He says that's not the issue here. When God sees blindness, he sees the opportunity to heal. When God sees blindness, his goal is not to accuse. His goal is to heal. His goal is to heal. The reason why God cannot heal the blindness that is ensuing upon many people's life down through history is because we won't admit it. Remember, he said, I came to heal the blind, or he said, I came to heal those who were sick, but those that think that they are well, I didn't come to heal them. Because they're really not well, and they really can't see, but they've spent so much time pretending that they can, we can't deal with it. One of the greatest signs of the beginning of maturity in a person's life is that we stop pretending that we can see. I mean, take what really is honestly there, but let's be honest with ourselves, because especially in the culture of this church and those listening on this podcast, if you listen to enough of these sermons, you start to realize you do see the light blinking that there's something here. Are you with me today? But it's not uncommon for people to say, but there's so much I don't understand. And God's desire is not to say, well, when are you going to understand? No, God's desire is, okay, let us explore. Let us reason together. Let us see a little bit more from glory to glory. Let the light begin to stay on, to begin to continue to shine. Let us continue to discover. Let us continue to understand. And it's not just because God's trying to make a bunch of deep philosophers. No, the reality is everything that God is trying to get you to see is for a reason. It may not be for present for today, but it could be very relevant for tomorrow, next month, next year. We are going to face challenges. We're going to face situations in the future. And God's desire is to have a preparatory type of relationship with you so that you are prepared that when you arrive at these points of times, relationally, financially, and spiritually, that you are equipped to be able to deal with it in a relevant way. All of us know what it is not to be prepared. All of us know what it is and not to have what we need to have when it's time to have it. And God's desire is because some of us have been through some very deep, dark periods of time. And God says, I've not put anything upon your life, allow you to go through anything that I have not made a way for you. But you still got to be able to see that way. In order to see that way, we got to be able to begin to point out, I have a blind spot here relationally. I have a blind spot about relationship, about love. I have some ideas, but I can tell that I'm really not understanding. Nobody can do that for me. Nobody can do that for you. You know what you know, and you know what you don't know. God's relationship to our blindness is not who has sinned and done something wrong. God's relationship to our blindness is that we can be healed. I want you to consider the question here on the board. What if we are born blind? And the greatest deception we have is that we can see with these two eyes are here. So we swear we can see. We're very sophisticated creatures made in the image of God. We are meant to be seers. But most people, if they really want to get honest, will admit their vision is very limited. Very limited, Sandra.
So, because I studied psychology in college, there's this effect called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And basically it's what you're talking about in science, where the human brain, it's like how many hours you study whatever particular subject, like health or whatever, there's that point where you know a little bit, and they're saying that once you get past that and true experts in a field, whether it's spiritual, medical, this Dunning-Kruger effect comes into play because you understand the depth of which you don't, how much more there is for you to know. So I've always kind of tried to be encouraged when I get overwhelmed with where I am spiritually and like what I'm missing. And instead of like getting down on myself, to actually be encouraged as like, well, the fact that I can see that I don't understand all the things, right? That I'm a little bit overwhelmed is actually maybe an indicator that I'm going in the right direction versus if I was so convinced like, oh, I got it. Because that was our religious background. Like, oh, I know everything. I'm going to argue with you. You're wrong. I'm right, right? And there was just like, we were missing like huge pieces of everything.
Yeah, beyond huge. Yeah. Who are the people that contended with Jesus the most? Was it the East Side locals, drug addicts, prostitutes?
Pharisees.
It was the people that went to church. People that went to church. They're saying, no, we see. Last Sunday, I read the passage where they asked Jesus, oh, so you're saying we're blind too? And he didn't respond to them directly. He just simply said this, look, for those that are blind, they can receive their sight. For those that think that they can see, then the sin remains. Sin is missing the mark, missing the point. So the fact that you're missing the point will remain. It's not free to miss the point about relationship. If you're missing the point about relationship, there can be great hardship, great heartbreak, great loneliness. Are you with me today? Great heartbreak, great hardship, great loneliness, because you're missing the point. If you're missing the point in the area of finances, there can be great heartbreak, great hardship, and great disappointment. It's not free. See, people get into an area like this where they think, you know what, Chris, you spend a lot of time preaching philosophy. God existed before so-called philosophy. And you'll find out that the greatest philosophy exposes our God. It starts with God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And so the reality is, philosophy is nothing more than exploring the principles of God, the principles of truth. Not to make deep philosophers, to have a depth of relationship, to have a depth of prosperity, to have a depth of spiritual understanding. The issue is not guilt. The issue is wholeness and God healing our blind eyes. Let's look at our advantage today in the area of sight. In Galatians 5, verse 1, once again, he says, to stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ has made us free, and be not entangled again in the yoke of bondage. They asked these two people here, if there was a cure for your blindness, would you accept it? Wasn't it interesting that they both hesitated? They both hesitated. We're saying it's weird because of their physical blindness. People hesitate all the time about spiritual blindness. It takes courage to be happy. It takes courage to see what God wants you to see, like a forgiveness that far outweighs shame and guilt. Now, everybody wants the benefit of being free from shame and guilt. But people hesitate about the cure. They hesitate about the cure. Theologians and people that study the Bible actually denounce the cure because they're saying you're getting too close to calling yourself God. I'm not God, but I am one with God. And I'd rather be close to that truth than worry about being somebody offended because they're misunderstanding what I'm saying. Because what I'm putting on is the cure. I'm putting on the cure. It was never preached to me. It was never taught to me, yet it was always in this Bible right here. God said, I'm going to make the birds like the birds, the beasts of the field like the beasts of the field. But he says, I'm going to make Ray like me, Monique like me, Ethan like me. We're made in his image. But we're blind to try to understand, what does that mean? Go ahead, Monique.
Real quick, what's your opinion about why that lady was hesitant about getting her sight back when asked, her in particular? Him, I kind of understand, but her, that just shocked me. What's your opinion? Do you have any?
We're used to where we're at. Now, somebody will look at your life and say, man, you know what I would do if I had what you had? Ever have somebody do that? Oh, yeah, man. If I was, oh, yeah. Everybody's got a great idea what to do with their life. They don't know what the heck to do with their own, but they all got ideas about what to do with your life. The reason why she hesitated, because she was used to where she was at. Doesn't mean she was satisfied with it, but she was used to it. You can get used to loneliness, but hate it. You can get used to poverty, but hate it. You can get used to blindness, but hate it.
Do you also think it's because, too, like, there's a level of responsibility that comes with whatever, like, so whether it's money or seeing certain things, like, there's also, like, there's something that comes with that.
Yeah. I think that's true. But I think that's almost like the second stage you run into if you're trying to say, oh, yeah, I think I'd like to see. And then you say, okay, well, let's explore that. Then you're thinking, well, wait a minute.
Especially that first guy.
Yeah. I mean, he's saying, and he's probably correct, that if I started to see, can you imagine what I would be going through? And he's relating to the flesh, his brain. He's not even relating to his spirit. They're not having a spiritual conversation technically, but they are. Because you can be afraid. You can get a really good job and want to blow it up. You can get somebody that really loves you and you just want to jack up the relationship. You can get a whole pocket full of money that you find. And now you're just like, you're tortured because the reality is like, I wish I never had this money. All that wouldn't make sense to everybody else. But your hesitation is directly in line with you're now not in a familiar place. You're not in a familiar place. See, religion has promoted far more guilt than it has freedom. Far more shame. I've had people come and tell me, Chris, you need to preach more about sin. You need to preach more about the devil. Well, how big would you like your devil? Like a big devil, big horns, small horns. Big spear, big tail. How demonic would you like that? Well, you don't preach enough about sin. Sin is called missing the mark. What you would like me to do is preach a list and make sure it's, we really get some really good illustrations. Kids, send your kids to the nursery because we're going to be burning it down today. Yeah. Why? Because missing the mark, there's no whiz bang with that, There's just blindness. That you can't focus. You can't focus. Seeing is really important. You find out when it's no longer you can see. Then you're buying stuff like cheaters and you're doing all kinds of, got all these weird, every time my wife does it, I just don't do that. Here, well, you watch me. What's going on? You come over to my desk, I got a big magnifying glass. And I see myself, I got glasses, a big magnifying. That's not reflecting on my age at all, by the way. But regardless of what's going on and how I feel, I still need to see. I need to see. And I don't just need to see the physical. There are things that I need to see because God intended you to see not just what's happening today. God intends you to be able to look to the past. See, God's omnipresent. Give me your idea of omnipresence. It's not a test, but your expression. What's omnipresent?
Being at multiple places at the same time.
At the same time. God being everywhere at the same time. You're made in the image of God. You're called to be everywhere at the same time. But if you can't see why that's relevant or how that's possible, then you're just going to settle for, I'm here. But you can sit right now and roll the film back from yesterday. Are you with me? Why you're still present today. The more sensitive you are and the more that you can see, you can start to see the future. Not so much the details, but there's people here that have sat with younger people than yourself and they're telling you what you're going to do. And it's like you're a prophet. You're going to be like, you're going to do what? If you bump your head, here's my phone number, give me a call. Why? Because you can see. It's not that you're trying to judge and you're trying to rain on their parade, but the thing is, they don't realize you've been down that road already. You crashed into that pole, you fell into that hole, you were in that jail, and you kind of just like, yeah, and they're like, what? You just don't want me to be happy. No, I'm sorry. You want me to apologize because I can see? I can see. God created us in his image to be able to see. That was supposed to be an advantage, not a disadvantage. John chapter 9, 4-9 says, I must work the works of him that sent me while it is yet day, and the night cometh which no man can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Verse 6. And when he had thus spoken, he spat on the ground and made clay of spittle, and he anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay. Verse 7, and he said unto him, go wash in the pool of Siloam, which is by interpretation sent. And he went his way therefore and washed and came seeing. And the neighbors therefore, and they which before had seen him, that he was blind, is this not he that sat and begged? Some said, this is he. Others said, he is like him. But he said, I am he. Galatians 4:4-7. Galatians 4:4-7. But when the fullness of time was come, God sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. And because you are sons and daughters, God has sent forth the Spirit of his Son into your hearts, crying, Abba, Father. Verse 7. Wherefore thou art no more a servant or slave, but a son. And if a son, then an heir of God through Christ. Through Christ. So Paul is trying to minister to these people and letting them know you're no longer a slave to guilt and to shame. That is not the point. Who sinned? Why has this man been blind from birth? God's intention is to begin to get us to realize he has set you free. But that freedom has to be realized. It's not automatic. The disciples walked with Jesus for 3 years, and from time to time, Jesus said, how is it I have been with you this long, and yet you still do not understand? Because seeing is not automatic. It's not automatic. There's a part that you have in the responsibility to your relationship with God. And when you run into these areas of blind spots and you say, you know what? I do have an answer, but I'm guessing here. I'm guessing about relationship. I'm guessing about prosperity. I'm guessing about you, God. And I want you to, can you heal my blind eyes? Can you heal it? Because not only can I not see, but my conclusions, and that was going to bring that up. The guy that was dreaming, but he had no vision in his dream, do you think he was still coming to conclusions about life? So even though he was blind, he was still coming to conclusions. They asked him, what kind of movies do you like? Oh, I like Goodfellas, Italian gangster movie. So he's listening to the soundtrack. He can't see anything. So he's filling in the picture. If he's saying Goodfellas is good, did he come to a conclusion about houses, gangsters, all this? We're saying, well, how? See, now we're running into the sophisticated part of yourself. See, we're already absolute about stuff, but we don't even know what we're talking about. We're saying, how can you, like people are going to ask, how can you be at peace? We've seen you before. We saw your rap sheet. We saw you in the 6 o'clock news. We've seen you from the past. How can you be without shame and guilt? When the reality is, they're convinced of their conclusion, but the truth is, they can't see. They can't see. The people that wanted Jesus crucified went to church because they thought they could see. But the fruit of their spirit showed that they couldn't see. The Bible says you'll know them by their fruit. And the fruit of love and peace and joy and kindness is not crucify him. That's not that. Those don't go together. Those don't go together. When you feel yourself being mean, and if you're comfortable doing that, guess what? That's not the fruit of the Spirit, children. That's not the fruit of the Spirit. That's something else. That's a different conclusion. That's not something the intimacy of your relationship, God brought you to that place. It really was beautiful watching these two people that can't see describe what they could see in the way that they had it. They're both blind. They both could be totally depressed. The guy was being brutally honest. I'm almost glad I never saw it in the first place. That's the first chapter of Romans says, better that you never knew in the first place. Because as Sandra is saying, is once you can see, you're kind of responsible. You're responsible. But I tell you what, I'd rather be responsible about freedom than about captivity. I'd rather be responsible about confidence than shame and guilt. I'm so glad that God, when he looked at my life, that my blindness, he wasn't looking, yeah, the guy's a filthy sinner. What do you expect? He can't see. No, God looked at my life and healing was his agenda. Wholeness was his agenda. Touching me and allowing me to see what I formerly could not see. Paul said, the thing that I understand today, the sight that I have, didn't come from another man. It said it came from God. See, there's a sight in reference to relationship and resource and religion that God is waiting for every single one of you in your own world, in your own way, to see in a way that doesn't matter about what somebody else sees. But it has to be realized by you. And the way that you realize it is you start to become honest with yourself about what you can't see. Everything you need is prepared for you already, but it has to be realized. Has to be realized. I'm wondering if this might be true, that we're all born in principle with spiritual blindness. I'm wondering why that God, in closing this morning, has invited us to a born-again experience. If we are born the first time blind, maybe God is spiritually calling us to a birth of awakening, to give us an understanding, to give us a vision, to give us a perspective, to give us a philosophy, to give us a foundation that brings such incredible confidence. Confidence begets confidence. Fear begets fear. God is trying to give us a foundation, a new beginning. A new beginning. Not a new beginning so we got a clean slate. No, a new beginning so that you can see how he has always seen you. And now you get to see in a way yourself and other people in a way that you didn't even know was possible. See, these two people that are on this video have no idea how we saw them today. Isn't that incredible? I mean, it was hard not to appreciate them. My hope is that they can see that they are appreciated. My hope is that you can see that you are appreciated. That God is saying, you are my heir, you are my son, you are my daughter. I am dealing with you out of that relationship. I'm not dealing with you as some stranger. It's not about your guilt and your shame. It's about your healing, about you waking up, about your new birth, about your understanding. How many feel encouraged this morning? Let's bow our heads.